Cuba saying goodbye to Fidel Castro. A public service drew thousands tonight in the city of Santiago de Cuba. Fidel's brother Raul Castro delivered a final homage. Raul Castro announced that Cuba will not allow monuments or streets to be named after Fidel, in keeping with the late ruler's wishes.
Fidel's ashes will be interred in the city of Santiago de Cuba, and that's where Calvin Hughes starts our coverage tonight.
As quickly as they poured in, thousands poured out of the main plaza here in Santiago de Cuba after the mass rally. Unlike in Havana, this mass rally lasted for just over an hour. The mass rally in Havana took place for 3+ hours. Let's take a look back at the night's events here. You can see there were a number of speeches on hand today. Several people came up, including members of the Cuban Communist Party, giving very long speeches, including Raul Castro, who sounded a little exhausted tonight and even emotional. And during certain points of his speech, he rallied the crowd, getting them to wave their Cuban flags. And he pledged tonight that the revolution would go forward.
Ahora sí ganamos la guerra.
Now we've won the war.
Ese es el Fidel invicto.
That is the victorious Fidel,
Que nos convoca con su ejemplo
who asked us to follow his example.
y con la demostración de que
He showed us that,
sí se pudo,
yes, we could.
sí se puede
Yes, we can.
y sí se podrá.
And yes, we will.
And I talked about how many of the thousands here who were waving their flags out there, not all Cuban flags, joined now by Glenna Milberg, who had a chance to talk to some of the people who aren't necessarily from Cuba out there waving their flags.
You know, it's so interesting to listen to recurring themes of what people find valuable in their revolution. And one of them is that you hear all the time is that Fidel Castro put Cuba, very small Cuba, on the global stage. We were right in that crowd today finding out that that is hard to argue.
El embajador vino.
The ambassador from Pakistan, he says, came to the plaza like all Cubans to manifest his sentiment for Fidel.
¡Revolución cubana! ¡Viva!
El pueblo saharaui está también y siente esa pérdida.
From the Sahrawi Republic, the Sahrawi nation feels his loss along with the world, he said.
Me apasiona la revolución, me apasiona todo lo que hizo Fidel.
From Uruguay, my passion for the revolution and everything that Fidel did for Latin America. This is an historic moment.
Simboliza fuerza, energía.
And from Chile, we have similar political ideologies, the example of the rebellion, consequences, and inspiration to socialism, which is a different cut than that of capitalism. No surprise that Fidel Castro is a hero among governments in Latin America who have swung left in the past decade. Also no surprise that one of the flags missing from here tonight was that of the United States.
In Old Glory at the U.S. Embassy back in Havana, the only flag on the island not flying at half-staff at embassies here.
Right, and we understand that there have been only 2 times that the embassy, the United States, has lowered that flag to have staff here, one of them being the death of Nelson Mandela.
I want to go back and talk about something that we both mentioned here about just the crowds here and you going out among the crowds. We cannot emphasize enough, and not glorifying this, by the way, just how many people who were here behind the camera, an amazing number of people who were here, quite the spectacle.
Yes, and we talk about this so many times when we report at home, where so much of our community is Cuban exiles, that people here are expected to and even tacitly required to attend these events. And there are people here who have been required to attend. But to be fair, we did meet many, many people that were very passionate about their government and their country and wanting to be part of this communal experience.
7 o'clock tomorrow. That is the funeral for Fidel Castro.
The interment at Santa Eugenia Cemetery.
And not far from here, and a number of dignitaries who will be on hand for that. And both Glenn and I will be here to cover that for you. We'll have a lot more coming up on Sunday morning. But until then, we'll send it back to you in the studio.